In today's episode, we'll cover the alarming study that finds that most people just do what ChatGPT tells them, even if it's wrong, the fact that people are getting dangerously attached to AI, and finally, the idea that staff is too scared of the AI axe to pick it up. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Happy Monday. I'm happy to be back, and for today's episode, we have really three interesting stories. The first one is an article that comes from Futurism.com mentioning that there is an alarming study that was done saying that, well, it found that most people just do what ChatGPT tells them, even if it's totally wrong. And apparently, there is a term for that which is called cognitive surrender. So the article, of course, starts saying and reminding us, thank you, of course, that chatbots can make regular mistake. And I can tell you, I am using all three of them, like the major ones, ChatGPT, Gemini, and Anthropic Claude, of course. And yeah, I do observe mistakes all the time from all of them, even Grok and the like, of course. I would say that this is not something that will get away with LLMs. This is how they work. So whatever we call AI, right now there is an overemphasis on LLMs, but just so you know, of course, and I'm not a professional in the field, but I just know that LLMs, large language models that can predict the next best word, let's say, based on the previous ones in a conversation, kind of. Sorry for the professionals in the AI world. I hope I'm not butchering it. Well, these kind of LLMs are doing this with a probabilistic approach. And so it's all probabilities. And with probabilities, if you're not familiar, of course, there is an error rate. It's kind of normal to have errors. And so the article goes on saying that many users don't understand that reality. There is a paper published by the University of Pennsylvania postdoctoral researcher Stephen Shaw and marketing professor Gideon Nave, I hope I'm not pronouncing the name incorrectly, saying that they have done a series of experiments and users tend to take the output of ChatGPT at face value. So that's something that I want to cover, of course. So there are several things at play here. So before I give my opinion, let me just continue with sharing with you this summary. So apparently the researchers were testing a key theory, whether users would be willing to believe what the AI was telling them regardless of accuracy, and they labeled that cognitive surrender. So the experiment involved 359 participants, and the participants followed the AI's correct advice 92.7% of the time, and 79.8% of the time when the AI gave the wrong answer. So then they mentioned that there is override rates. This is, I think, the rate that you measure when the AI gives an output and you override what it tells. So it's like you correct. You say, oh, no, you're wrong, or no, I just want it like that, and so on. And so apparently the override rates are higher in AI faulty environment, AI faulty scenario, but still they tend to follow faulty recommendations. We felt, this is a quote, we felt that the ability to actually outsource thinking hadn't really been studied itself. It's sort of a profound idea, end quote. Shaw said during UPenn podcast appearance last month. Starting a new quote, a bit provocative, I would say, in the paper, that with these AI tools that are available, they are so ingrained in our daily lives and decision processes that we now have the option to outsource thinking itself. And there is a last quote that I want to cover because it's interesting. The capacity to think critically, the capacity to be able to check what the AI is giving you has become more and more important over time. End quote. And a new quote, this is kind of a muscle that we have that hopefully we are not going to lose over time. End quote. There is also another quote. Right now we are constrained by communicating with LLMs through our phones or computers. End quote. Start new quote. As those barriers reduce, that integration is just going to become stronger naturally. So this is something that I'm really fascinated at. So there are several things at play here. I think that ultimately researchers might have been working on AI myself. I can tell you, ultimately at the very beginning, you might be, if you're a designer or researcher, be kind of worried that the users will not adopt your AI because of lack of trust, because you see that how it works all the time and you see all the errors it makes. And when you put it into your product, you need to be thinking of all the errors it can make. And so you go down the rabbit hole of describing all the errors it can make in all these scenarios. Unhappy paths, if you're not familiar, this is something that I cover in another episode previously. So yeah, this is the idea of how should I communicate to my users the limitation of my AI, and how can I do that without them losing trust? Because ultimately this is a great feature to use AI. And if you use ChatGPT, Claude, or whatever other models or front ends, you can tell that sometimes they say Claude or ChatGPT can make mistakes. Please use with caution, verify the outputs, and so on. But I would say I would compare that to like the list of ingredients that you have on a Coca-Cola soda bottle. It's kind of the same. You know it can be bad for you. It can be bad for you. I'm not necessarily saying that it is bad for you when you use AI. I do use it every day, and I love it. But I know also the limitations, or at least I try to minimize the errors in the output that it generates. That makes me think about potentially a new episode that I can do on all the possible ways AI can be wrong and how we can watch out for that. But yeah, so this is interesting because it looks like if people are blindly trusting it, we are entering an era in which, as the article says, being able to think critically will be scarce, because you ask something and it gives an answer. I think that probably this behavior of trusting blindly what the AI says can be due to some extent. That's a hypothesis, okay? I'm not saying this is verified. That's a hypothesis. It can be due to the fact that the answers are generated so easily, and it's on our phones and it's on our laptops, and maybe in the future it will be by voice and so on. It will be more and more natural, as the article says. So the more convenient it is, naturally, you tend to forget that behind that, this is a statistical machine, and it can be wrong. In the same way a human can be wrong. But I would say if you go talk to an expert, like medical expert, there is very, very, very few risk that this expert can be wrong. So this is not working in the same way, because this AI output is trained on a lot of data on the internet, and it takes the average to provide you an answer. Except if you train it, it increases accuracy. There are many tests done on that. You have ways to measure accuracy, by the way, which is in this contingent table, which is like, imagine, you count all the times that the AI made a correct prediction, and then, so you count all the times it made a correct prediction. It labeled something as positive, let's say, and it was actually positive. Or it labeled something as negative and it was negative, and so on and so forth. That's probably not LLM, by the way, but that's a way to look at it, right? So it's kind of thresholds to determine if something is accurate or not, right? And then you do some stats on that, and you can analyze this information. So I'm really surprised at the broader implications that this can have. Of course, not surprisingly, at the same time, if you put something very convenient in the hands of people, people will ultimately, like I would say, the majority of people will not fight for what is harder to do, which is exerting your putting in use your critical thinking abilities, because that is harder, and that is what distinguishes humans from AI. And so ultimately in the design, if these companies want the good for people, they should learn from these kind of studies and adapt their design and their experience so that people do not blindly trust them. Because, well, as we can see with this output of this article, we have the proof that just saying AI can be wrong, it's not enough, because people still trust it. And at the same time, if it is something that you always display in the same place, it's like, I don't know, if you're a smoker and you read the same message on your cigarette pack every day, it's like you're desensitized. That's natural, that's human, and that's habituation. That's a neuroscientific, process that has been described, neuroscientifically. This is a biological process described neuroscientifically. You get used to it. So it's like, oh yeah, I know it can be bad. Or sometimes you flat out don't consider it. Anyways, I do think that the companies need to adapt for that. Okay, and then we have another article from theregister.com. That's the first time I see this website. Folk are getting dangerously attached to AI that always tells them they're right. And I think that is complementary to the previous idea. So it's like they say that sycophantic bots, I'm not a pro on the definition, but I would say that sycophantic are the bots that kind of always praise the user and go along with the vibes of whatever the user is saying, not challenging them like a normal human being would do. And sometimes it's like overly, how can I say, overly praising. So it's like, yeah, what do you think if today, I'm not saying this is a good use case, of course, but I have 1 hour in front of me and I do want to do sport, but I also want to see friends. What do you think if I go running with them? Whatever. This is a really bad use case. Well, the AI would tell you, wow, such a great idea, you're an actual genius. So probably you came across that, and I think at some point ChatGPT, OpenAI, had some issues with the models because they were being sycophantic, which is the exact process that's being described here. And so it's saying that AI can lead mentally unwell people to some pretty dark places, as a number of recent news stories have taught us. Now, researchers think sycophantic AI is actually having a harmful effect on everyone. So they say, for instance, in reviewing 11 leading AI models and human responses to interactions with those models across various scenarios, a team of Stanford researchers concluded in a paper published Thursday that AI sycophancy is prevalent, harmful, and reinforces trust in the very models that mislead their users. Even a single interaction with sycophantic AI reduced participants' willingness to take responsibility and repair interpersonal conflicts, while increasing their own conviction that they were right. In every single instance, the AI model showed a higher rate of endorsing the wrong choice than human did, the researchers said. Quote, overall, deployed LLMs overwhelmingly affirm user actions even against human consensus or in harmful contexts, end quote. So that's really fascinating. Yeah, I mean, who would have thought? If you are told every time that you are right, who would have thought that you would not challenge your thoughts and that you would, let's say, yeah, go more towards maybe extreme behaviors or thoughts. And also, if you put the AI to use for scenarios in which it should not be used. So, because the LLM could praise the human, but maybe there are, I don't know, don't take me out of context, please, but maybe there are some scenarios and use cases where you can do that. So imagine someone who wants to improve their well-being and their lifestyle, and they're thinking about giving up some harmful habits. Probably in this case, the sycophantic behavior could, at least to some extent, help. I have no idea. That's really just a hypothesis. But of course, if so, there are two things here at play: is what can you use AI for? Should you use AI for things that are inherently psychological or linked to, let's say, your romantic life or your social life or whatever? That's one. And then when you use it, to what extent are you able to let's say, evaluate the bias that these AI have? And it's really boggling to me. We are putting a technology in the hand of people. I'm not saying the technology is bad. This is absolutely amazing. This is amazing. I'm just concerned about the way this is being done. The way this is potentially used. It's currently telling us that we lack proper design to inform people on the limitations and the risks of using AI. And it feels like about the same when we have new, let's say new technologies arriving or new things arriving, and they have not been tried and tested. I'm thinking about social media, for instance. We now know that social media can be harmful and that there is potentially, I don't know, my take is that it could have a negative, there's a net negative of social media. I don't know. I'm personally not using social media because I know too much about the way it is designed and the way it hacks your brain. Not hacks is not the right word. But it's like, ultimately, what is the motive of the company that is releasing the product you're using? Ultimately, think about that. And the way it is designed, this is not without how can I say? There is a reason it is designed the way it is designed. We know that social medias are harmful the way they are done today, but it's still the same way they are. Like, it hasn't changed much. At the core, it's the same thing. And so I'm wondering, where will AI companies go in the future? I do believe that AI and LLMs and all the like is really an amazing technology. But it comes at a cost, and it comes with responsibilities. We need, and I'm not saying how we should do it. That's the role of researchers, designers, product managers, engineers to think about that. That's why it takes so many people. But we need to altogether think about responsible AI. What is responsible AI? What is an ethical behavior? What is morals when you use AI? All of that. And so it shouldn't be a side quest. It should be baked in at the core. Because if not, well, we see what it does to humans to have social media, for instance. It does also a lot of good. I'm not saying the opposite. But ultimately, I don't know. Maybe I'm a bit biased. I'm just dubitative as the need of social media. For instance, I'm not using it and I'm not feeling like I like it. So, like I miss it. So that's one data point. I'm not representing everyone, of course, but And I do feel that AI is indispensable nowadays, more and more and more, because it's a technology that will help you being more productive at some point. So if you don't use it, well, it will be harder to fit in a society that is geared towards more productivity. It's just the idea that if your neighbor is using it, ultimately, I don't know. Well, that's it for today. That's my 2 cents about these 2 articles, and they are kind of related, so I wanted to cover them. I don't have time for a third article today, but hopefully tomorrow I will cover this one. Have a great day. Cheers, and see you in the next one. Bye-bye.